active, as if intelligent. It is not theirs. It belongs to some other source. That is what he said. Misconception. All the organs appear to be intelligent, since the self is not perceived as distinct from them. In the waking state, you cannot see the self as distinct from the organs of manifestation. Therefore, we attribute the capacity for intelligence to these sense organs. So quite natural. Only deep investigation will reveal the truth. It is not this. There is some other source. That is what Vedanta wanted to develop in this context. So I ask you, Janaka is telling, which is the self? Among the body, organs, prana, vital force, and the manas or mind. Which is the self you have spoken of? Through which light? You said a man sits and does other kinds of work. Tell me that. That is the question. Which of these organs is this self identified with the intellect that you have meant? For all the organs appear to be intelligent. All of us can understand this position. All the organs appear to be intelligent. The eye is intelligent, ear is intelligent, they are all active, they are all functioning. So, the question is quite natural. All of them. As when a number of, example he gives, number of people are assembled, one may ask, they are all highly qualified. But which of these is worst in all the 6 branches of the Vedas? You can ask that question. All are scholars. But which is this particular type of scholar? In the first explanation, which is the self? The question, that is the question. And the answer is this infinite entity. The word this is pointing out to a living entity nearby. That is far away. This is nearby. Therefore the word this especially signifies that this very self in you, this infinite entity that is identified with the intellect, is the answer. And which of the organs is the self that is identified with the intellect? For that, which is the self that is identified with the intellect and is in the midst of the organs? They are functioning there. The light within the heart. Identified with the intellect means the precise description of the self that has been known only in a general way. Directly, we do not perceive the self, but we can see through the intellect, it is the nearest to the self. So, intellect becomes the medium through which the self manifests within the body. And through the intellect, the manas. Then the sense organ. That is how the whole body is alive with the self. The word iti, in which is the self. Katama atma iti. What is the self? The iti, when you say, question ends there. That's meaning of iti. Wherever iti means, thus, like this, like this. So, the word iti gives the precise prescription of the self that has been known only in a general way. But, hence we conclude that the expression, which is the self, is really the question. And all the rest of the sentence, beginning with this infinite entity that is identified with intellect, etc., is the answer. So, this is the answer to the question, which is the self. This is the self that manifests through the intellect, through the manas, through the sense organs, making them all alive, vital, active. That keeps the body also alive and vital. When all that self is no more there, all these organs become dead, body also becomes dead. Identified with the intellect. The intellect is the instrument that helps us in everything. Buddhi is the instrument that helps us in everything. To say yes and to yes, no. Always we need the intellect. Like a lamp set in front amidst darkness. That is the intellect. It has been said, it is through the mind that one sees and hears. In the Upanishad earlier it has said, so the mind, intellect, these are what you call different functions of the same instrument. So one knows, one hears, one understands everything through mind or the intellect. Every object is perceived only as associated with the light of the intellect. Without that, you cannot perceive an object. As objects in the dark are lighted by the lamp placed in front. If in dark there is an object, you can never see it. But if a light is put there, you can see it. Similarly, this intellect is the light by which you know things, you discriminate things. The other organs are but the channels for the intellect. Senses, eye, ear, nose, they are channels for the intellect. Therefore, the self is described in terms of that as identified with the intellect. Very beautiful idea. In the midst of the organs, there is the text, in the midst of the organs, that indicates that the self is separate from the organs. See that, in the midst of the organs, self is separate from the organs. Yeah. Like a rock in the midst of the trees. The rock is separate from the tree, and the rock is there in the midst of trees. Indicates only nearness. There is no doubt about the identity or difference of the self from the organs. In the midst of the organs means different from the organs, like the rock different from the trees in the forest. Within the heart, one may think that the intellect, which is the same class as the organs, is meant as being in the midst of the organs. This is refuted by the phrase, within the heart, with further depth. Sense organs are on the outer side. Deeper, the heart. Heart here stands for the intellect. Primarily, the lotus-shaped lump of flesh is one simple meaning of the word heart, hridaya. But here it means the intellect, which has its seat in the heart. The yogic heart is not actually the lump of flesh, but in the Sushumna canal, there are various lotuses. They are called chakras, centers. The fourth center, practically near the heart, within the Sushumna, that is the place of the heart. Meditation for spiritual aspirants is centered there. In that Sushumna canal, the fourth center, you meditate on Atman or Brahman or God, sitting on a lotus. That is the instruction given. Beyond that is the lotus of the kantha or neck. Then comes between the eyebrows. Finally, the big cerebral system, sahasrara, 1000 lotus petal. That is all in the Sushumna canal. And so, this is near the heart. Self is called light because it is self-effulgent. The word light has been used there. It is self-effulgent. Consciousness is self-effulgent. It can light itself, it can light others, it can help others to see each other in that light. That's the nature of this consciousness, the self. Ramakrishna tells a very apt illustration to this subject. The policeman goes on his night beat round the village. He has a lantern in his hand. 3 sides of it are darkened. Only from one side light will come. With that light, he can find out who is quarreling, who is fighting. He can just throw the light and find. And they also can find each other through that light. But they do not know where from the light comes. And so if they want to see the light, where from it comes, they must request the policeman, please throw the light on yourself so that they may know who you are. Similarly, the Atman's light lights up the whole world. but the Atman himself is not lighted up. For us, we need to request the Atman to reveal yourself. Then we can see each other, we can also see you. This is the nature of spiritual experience. So he said, the aggregate. Self is called the light. Self-effulgent Atman. This aggregate of body and organs, the Atman sits, goes out, and works as it were sentient, as if sense organs are sentient, with life. They have no life of their own, but they do go and work and come back, and we think they are doing it themselves, but they are doing it because there is a light of the Atman giving them that light. As an emerald or any other gem dropped for testing into milk, you put it into milk, emerald, to test its quality, then what happens? Imparts its luster to them. To any medium, an emerald is put, its luster, it imparts to that object. So does this luminous self, being finer than even the heart or intellect, more subtle than the intellect, is the Atman. In the Upanishad that has been given, this body, beginning from this body up to the Atman, everything in this body is subtle, still more subtle, still more subtle. Body is gross, but it is subtle compared to the world outside this body. Nervous system, more subtle. Psychic system, still more subtle. Finally, the Atman, extremely subtle. That subtle reality is our true self. This is how the word subtlety is used there, and along with subtlety, expansiveness also comes. Sukshma is the word for subtlety. 3 words are used by Shankaracharya in that 3rd chapter, verse of the Kathopanishad. Sukshma, Mahantascha, Pratyagatma Bhutascha. That as you go deeper into the human personality, you reach more subtle, more immense, more dimensions of one's own self, from the body to the Atman. The nerve is more immense in power than the muscle. The psyche is more immense in power than the nerve. And the Atman is most immense compared to all of them. So, these 3 values, subtlety, immensity, inwardness, reach their infinite value when you reach the Atman. That is the self. Here itself, you can experiment for yourself. The muscle has no energy, though we think it has. Its energy comes from the nervous system. It is more subtle, but it contains more energy. Even the nervous system is nothing compared to the psychic system. When the mind fails, the entire nervous system also fails. So energy is there. Finally, the Atman, the strength of all strength, lies in that infinite self behind all this. So there you have the consummation of these 3 values: subtlety, immensity, inwardness. This nervous system is more inward than the muscular system. Psychic system is more inward than the nervous system. And the Atman is the most inward. And then saying this, Upanishad said, Sa kashtha, sa paragatihi. That is the final state of subtlety and infinity. There is nothing higher than that. That's why the Atman is infinite consciousness. One and non-dual. You cannot have anything beyond it. When you discover the one, then you can't go beyond it. There is nothing beyond the one. That is how Vedanta has discussed this great subject. So, fineness within it. These varying degrees of fineness or grossness in a certain order are given the order from bottom to top. You can also come from top to bottom. Supremely subtle Atman, less subtle intellect and mind, less subtle nervous system, least subtle is the body, just coming down like this, within the same human being. The intellect being transparent. See the beauty of that. The body, the flesh, is not transparent. But the sense organs have become transparent. Actually, it is the nervous system that functions through the sense organs. They are transparent. Therefore, they are able to reflect the light of the Atman better and better and better. Body cannot reflect the light of the Atman. When the body dies, there is nothing in the body to reflect any light there. So, we go from the body to the sense organs. They're all catching a reflection of the intelligence of the Atman. Just a little reflection it has caught. Therefore, even wise men happen to identify themselves with it first. Even a wise man identifies himself with a sense organ and the sense organ. Or even further down, I am the body. All of us identify ourselves, I am the body, I am the body. Dehatma buddhi is called. Consciousness that my body is myself. Then the nervous system is the self. A little more subtle minds can understand that. Even wise men happen to identify themselves with it first. Next comes the manas, which catches the reflection of the self through the intellect. Manas, mind, intellect, these are all different functions of the same psychic instrument. So it catches a little reflection from the intellect and functions as if I am the master here. Then the organs, eyes, ears, nose, etc. Also through contact with the manas. Without contact with the manas, organs cannot function. That much modern theory of perception has told us that in every act of perception, various waves of light come from the object, strike the retina. From there, through the nervous eye of the nervous system of the eye, it goes towards the center of the nervous system there. Up to that, it is mere picture of the external object, without color, without anything. But there a big change takes place. This we call perception. There a big change takes place. Then we are able to see the color, the beauty, everything. When it becomes conception, the mind has entered into the picture. Without the mind entering into the picture, there is no perception possible. What a beautiful idea. Even in normal experience, we can see that if your mind is engaged in something else and somebody talks something to you, you won't hear anything. Your mind is engaged elsewhere. Anyatra mana abhuvam na ashrausham. Sanskrit they put it. I was thinking of something else, so I didn't hear what you said. Though all the energies have gone inside, waves have come up to the brain system, it has gone. But no perception has taken place. Why? Mind did not react. The mental reaction is what makes a perception into a conception, a concept. A mere percept into a concept. Even in normal experience, this is accepted in all neurology. That they call it in their scientific language, the body-mind bridge. There is a bridge. We don't know what that bridge is. You have to cross that bridge. How it comes, we do not know. Conceptions are mental products. Perceptions are organic products. How can organic products become conceptual products? We do not know. That's called the bridge between percepts and concepts. They capture the reflection. They contact through the manas, the organs function. They get a little light. Lastly, there is the body. After the sense organs, you come to finally the body. Through the organs, the body becomes alive. The organs are not there, body cannot become alive. Eyes, ears, nose, all these organs make the body also alive. And behind all this is the self. That is the search. Where is that self? How to discover it? How to realize it? That's what the Upanishads attempted through the study of experience itself. Not theoretical, but a study of experience. Yes. Thus, the self successively illumines with its own intelligence the entire aggregate of body and organs. That is the final conclusion. Just like the sun illumines the whole solar system, that is the example given in the Gita. Similarly, this self illumines the entire psychophysical system. It is therefore that all people identify themselves with the body. Body is alive, therefore self is in the body. I am the self, this body is the self. Those who believe body is the self, they try to keep the body fine, make it beautiful, make it nice, make it so many things. In fact, today's industry is meant to make this body very, very fine, full of sense and full of paintings, all sorts of things you will get. Because body is the self. That is my knowledge. Chandogya Upanishad, last chapter, deals with this subject. That Indra and Virochana, king of the gods, king of the Asuras, they both went to Prajapati to study Vedanta. Virochana understood only up to the first lesson. Body is the self. It functions, it is okay. Indra also understood body as the self. But while returning home, Indra began to doubt, how can this be? Only his body is the self. Body is dead as anything. It must have some other source of energy and power. He returns back to the teacher. Virochana never returned. And when Virochana was going away, satisfied, my body is myself, there is nothing else. With that conviction, the Prajapati, the teacher, said, see, that man is going with a dangerous philosophy, that the body is the self. Great evil will come. The whole of modern civilization, you can study from that story, Virochana's story. This is what I know. Body is myself, nothing else. Let us make it. Vivekananda wrote in one letter from America, you do not know the enormous amount of money being spent to beautify the body. Even for paring the nails, there are 100 types of instruments. Like that he wrote in one letter 100 years ago. Now it is much more. Consumerism means that physical consumerism. People rarely consume books. Mental consumerism is very little. When I went to Cleveland Public Library, they gave me a reception, the biggest library next to the Congress, and the library containing the largest number of books on India. 100,000 books are there. And the greatest library on chess, that is the Cleveland Public Library. So I asked the librarian, such a wonderful books, do people take and read? Sorry, very few take and read. So consumerism is only at that body level. Higher level does not come. A few scholars will come and study, that's all. Nothing else. I think it's the same fate our own libraries also. Just they are there, well stocked, beautiful. That's all. They are not there interested to eat a little for the mind. Mental food, they are not concerned with. Cheapest mental food and strongest and heaviest, richest physical food. So I used to tell American student audiences, you have a good physical digestion, and that is good to have such a digestion. And you eat Kentucky chicken and hamburger, plenty. That's beautiful. But also develop strong mental appetite, mental digestion, so that you can read serious books and develop your mind also. Can keep this along with that. Don't be having only physical digestion, physical appetite. I used to tell same story in our country. Today, the mental appetite is getting less and less. Physical appetite is going more and more. Life in the body. There is higher life in the mind, and then the spiritual side. These are all beautiful. But we have not understood that idea. So he says, it is therefore that all people identify themselves with the body and organs, and that their modifications indefinitely according to their discrimination. The Lord also has said in the Gita, this is a beautiful sloka, as the one sun, O Arjuna, illumines the whole world, so the self, the owner of the field of this body, the Kshetrajna, the self It illumines the whole body. This is the Gita towards the end, 13th chapter. Also, know the light of the sun, which illumines the entire world, to be mine, Krishna has said. It is my own light that illumines through the sun the whole world. The Katha Upanishad also has it. Eternal in the midst of transitory things. Nityo anityanam. Chetana chetananam. Intelligent among things that are intelligent. Non-eternal things, this is the eternal among them. One among all intelligent beings. Then also, it shines. Everything else shines. Tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. The light of the Atman illumines everything that is luminous in this world. Kathopanishad. It's shining, everything shines. This universe shines through its light. The mantra also says in the famous Vedic mantra, often quoted, kindled by which light the sun shines. Yena surya tapati tejasa ittaha. Surya tapati. Surya shines. Yena tejasa ittaha. By illumined by which light? Light of the Atman. The whole sun shines thereby. From the early Vedas. Therefore, the self is the light within the intellect. That is the conclusion. Purusha, the person, the infinite entity. Purusha is the infinite entity. Purnam sarvam. That which fills everything is the technical meaning of the word Purusha. So, the Purusha, the infinite entity, which is myself, my true nature, this Purusha, the being all-pervading like the ether, space is all-pervading. Its self-effulgence is infinite because it is the illuminer of everything, but is itself not illumined by anything else. Nothing else illumines it. It is called Swayambhu, Swayam Jyoti, self-lighted, not lighted by something else. That way. This infinite entity of which you ask, which is the self, is self-effulgent. The Atman, the self in man, is self-effulgent. It is its own source of light, and it lights up the body-mind complex in the limited sphere. It lights up the whole universe in that unlimited sphere. Same light. The Atman, Brahman, both are one and the same, for, as I often repeat, there is no plural in consciousness. Consciousness cannot have any plural, only singular. That is the wonderful teaching which, as I often quote, Schrödinger, scientist, saying, this is a wonderful truth, that consciousness is a singular, of which the plural is inconceivable. These are his words. What Vedanta has proclaimed ages ago. There is only one consciousness. The universe, in you, in me, even the tiniest atom, everywhere. One infinite consciousness. You can't make it two. But do see many things. That is a delusion. You see a sun reflected in 1,000 pots. There are no 1,000 suns. The media are many, but the sun is one. The Atman is one. Media of the manifestations of the Atman are many. That's a Vedantic conclusion. We shall continue this text, and further ideas are coming. This whole section, fourth book, we are going through, 437, is full of this idea to convince us. We can easily say, yes, you are the Atman. But to convince intellectually, yes, that is true, this is correct. A scientific way of approaching this subject, very important subject of man's true nature. And I am telling, there is a tremendous search in the West in this field. Because we had neglected the human being in our search for physical science. Abstracted man. Only nature, only nature. Objectivity, 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 we said. Now they find that conclusion is absolutely half conclusion. you have neglected one whole segment of reality. The observer, the self, the knower. When that comes in, the whole thing becomes different. And that different type of approach you find in many, many books coming out of the West today. We shall continue this next Sunday. But before that, on the 26th, is Guru Purnima, a very famous day in the year. There will be a special function from morning 8:30 to 12:30 with meditation, lecture, question and all that. And towards the end, prasad will be given in the hand for people when they go home. So all are welcome. 26th is the Guru Purnima day. Let us spend a minute in silence and then disperse. We were studying the self-effulgence of the Atman revealed in the dream state, not in the waking state because of other interferences of sun and other lights. But in the dream, there is no other light. That is the argument we were studying earlier. This particular subject, which I referred to as Avasthatraya Prakriya, the methodology of the three states. Studying the significance of the three states, we arrive at the conclusion that the self in man is ever pure, effulgent, of the nature of pure consciousness, and it is infinite. That is the conclusion, and this is the first time in the history of thought that that study of the three states in correlation was done in India in the Upanishads. This was done in one or two other Upanishads also, and as I said, one entire Upanishad is dedicated to this subject, the Mandukya Upanishad with Gaudapada's Karika, a 12-verse Upanishad, extremely brief, but the whole subject is to show the Atman by the study of the three states. That is being done here, and we have spent a little time on Shankara's commentary. It makes it lucid. The statements of the text of the Upanishads. We are dealing with this subject that it has been said when the external lights that help the different organs have ceased to work, the self, the infinite entity, that is the light within the intellect, helps the organs through the mind. This is and all the other lights are shut out. The light of the Atman shines, and it shines through the mind. Even when the external aids of the organs, like eye, ear, etc., and also the sun and other lights exist, even when they exist, since these latter, being compounds, they are not simple, they are compounds, subserve the purpose of some other agency, and the body and organs, being insentient, cannot exist for themselves. This aggregate of body and organs cannot function without the help of the self, the light that lives for itself. One wonderful truth has been mentioned here that occurs again and again in the commentaries. Anything that is made out of parts has no function of its own to serve. It serves the function of somebody else. That's the meaning. Samhatanam pararthatvat purushasya. It is a Sankhyan dictum accepted by Vedanta. You make a chair, taking different pieces of wood, screw them together and make a chair. The chair has no purpose of its own to fulfill. It serves the purpose of a living being. That is the nature of the statement. Samhatanam pararthatvat. They have no swa-artha. There is para-artha. You build a house. You live in it. For the purpose of the house is for you to live there. By itself, it has no purpose to serve, because it is a samhata. So the sun, the stars, all these are samhatas. They have no self-purpose to serve. They serve the purpose of a living creature, living individual. That is a very big statement made in Vedanta and Sankhya. Today, slowly, this idea is being recognized, that a mere combination of parts have no purpose to serve for itself. It serves the purpose of something else. So this statement of samhatanam pararthatvat, purushasya, Shankara is invoking here is that self, the infinite self. All the sense organs and mind, these are all not self-purposive. They are all meant for another individual or a living entity, namely consciousness, the self. It is always through the help of the light of the self that all our activities take place. That's the statement. But we are not able to understand it because I am taking my work I am doing through this little light. Where is the self coming into the picture? We are right. In our present experience it is perfectly right. But when you investigate, then you find quite different. This light is nothing. The light of the self is the primary light. These are all secondary lights. That knowledge will come later. That is how science proceeds. Take an average, ordinary scientific truth. Even I can easily understand. But there is a profounder scientific truth that takes a lot of time, lot of investigation to discover. The Atman belongs to that category. Among the various lights, to separate the light of the Atman and focus your attention on it, this is the light of the self, the primary light, the light of all lights. That's language used. Jyotisham Jyoti. To establish this truth, this text is given here, and Shankara is commenting as best as we can through words to illumine this truth. It is always through the help of the light of the self that all our activities take place. This intellect and manas are consciousness. All these are but names of intelligence or the Atman. This is a quotation from another Upanishad. All this, it says, intellect and manas are nothing but consciousness. For purposes of study, you give a different name. Manas, buddhi, all these names you give. It is all consciousness. Where there is pure matter, there is no consciousness. Then there is consciousness functioning. So consciousness is given various names. Mind, buddhi, and further names also. But it is all consciousness only. Intelligence. For every act of people is attended with the ego. Whenever you say something, the I reference always will come. I say this. I may not express the word I, but the I reference is always there. In any statement that anybody makes, the I reference is always there. I see it. I like it. I don't like it. That I will always be there. You may not mention it, but it is there. No knowledge can take place without reference of the data to the I. That is the nature of knowledge. So, this I is always there. And what is this I? The reflection of the Atman in the intellect is this I. What you call the ego. Just a reflection of the Atman in the intellect. That he has described earlier, and he will tell now also, like putting an emerald in milk. The milk catches the color of the emerald. On all sides you will see, you can test the emeralds also by putting like this. He will say here. We have said this already through the illustration of the emerald. That illustration is very, very important. How it is said, an emerald or any other gem dropped for testing into milk imparts its luster to them. So does this luminous self, being finer than even the heart or intellect, unify and impart its luster to the body and organs, including the intellect. That is, when you investigate the source of the light, you go closer, 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 ultimately discover it is the Atman that is the source of all light. That is the language of Vedanta. Though it is so, yet now comes during the waking state, the light called the self, being beyond the organs and being particularly mixed up in the diversity of functions of the body and the organs, internal and external, such as the intellect, cannot be shown extricated from them. In waking state, that is the difficulty to experience the self, so much mixed up with so many things that are there around it. Like a stalk of grass extricating from its what you call sheath. Very difficult, very tender it is. It is one. Hence, in order to show this Atman in the dream state, there is no interference from external light. Let us enter into the dream state. See, this Upanishad started the study of dream with a view to realizing the truth about the human being. Modern psychology studied dreams only for clinical purposes. Freud started that study of dream. Here we study the knowledge of truth, or the truth about this human being. And today's investigation also is slowly turning in that direction. Dream, sleep, all turning into the direction of the supreme nature of the human being. So he says here, being particularly mixed up in the diversity of functions of the body and the organs, such as the intellect, cannot be shown extricated from them, like a stalk of grass from a sheath. Hence, in order to show it in the dream state, Yajnavalkya begins. The text is assuming the likeness. It moves between the two worlds, is the text. And Shankara comments, the infinite entity, that is the self-effulgent Atman, assuming the likeness of what? Likeness of the intellect. The answer, which is the topic, is also contiguous within the heart, is the phrase. There occurs the word heart, meaning the intellect, and it is quite close, therefore that is meant. So, identifying with the intellect, failure to distinguish between the intellect and the self, that's called identifying with the intellect. This Atman shines through the intellect. You can see the intellect and not the Atman. That is our difficulty. All through this human system, Atman's manifestation through gross, subtle, still more subtle aspects of the personality. Ultimately, through the intellect, we perceive the Atman. And we don't know that intellect is not the Atman. It is only the medium through which the Atman is manifesting. At that stage, the failure to distinguish between the intellect and the self, as between a horse and a buffalo. The intellect is that which is illumined. See that? The intellect is that which is illumined. What is its likeness? And the light of the self is that which illumines, like light. And it is well known that we cannot distinguish the two, the mind or intellect and the Atman. We cannot distinguish between the two. It is because light is pure and that it assumes the likeness of that which it illumines. It assumes the likeness of that which it illumines. And you mistake that as the light of the Atman. When it illumines something colored, it assumes likeness of that color. When, for instance, it illumines something green, blue, or red, it is colored like them. Similarly, the self illumining the intellect illumines through it the entire body and the organs. The whole liveliness of the body coming from that, as we have already stated through the illustration of the emerald. Therefore, through the similarity of the intellect, the self assumes the likeness of everything. Hence it to be described later on as identified with everything. The Atman is identified with everything through the self, through the intellect. Therefore, it cannot be taken apart from anything else. You cannot take it out from anything else. Like a stalk of grass from a sheath, and shown it in its self-effulgent form. It is for this reason